Hello everyone and welcome to Dark Souls Remastered and another weapon showcase. Oh boy, it's good to be back. Today we're going to start things off with the Halberd. This weapon is one that you pick up very early on in the game. It requires 16 strength and 12 dexterity in order to wield, and it's a great weapon that can easily carry you through the entirety of the game. It is phenomenal in PvP damage-wise, it works very well with a Leo ring, and it's got a lot of good stuff going for it. But let's get started with some of the basics. First and foremost, because weapon matchmaking is a thing with the showcases now, I'll go over the different scalings as it goes up in different increments, going from plus 5 to plus 10 and finally to plus 15. I'll also be going over the base damages while I am doing this. At plus 5, it's going to have 165 physical damage as its base. It'll have a C scaling in dexterity and a D scaling in strength, and those are actually going to stay the same all the way from plus 1 to plus 15. That said, the base damage does change. So, as I said, at plus 5 you're at 165, plus 10 you're at 220, and plus 15 you're at 275. And that does make quite a big difference with the weapon. Now, with this weapon, there are some pros and cons, of course, as there are with all weapons. First off, with the pros, it's got a pretty decent attack rating all said and done. When you make a quality build with this weapon, or even if you go with just a dexterity build to take advantage of the C scaling, you'll get the majority of your damage, and overall, it's pretty good. On top of that though, your R1s, the bread and butter of the build, you're going to want to go for your counter hits. You're going to want to try and bait out your opponent's attacks. Distancing is key with this. You can actually use that whiff animation, which normally would be considered the biggest con of the weapon. You can use that to your advantage in order to bait out an attack, and follow it up with the second R1, getting a counter hit. If that counter hit stuns them, that leads to another very good pro of the weapon. Unless they toggle escape out of that first hit, if it stuns them, you're guaranteed to get a second one. Now, as I said, they do have the ability to toggle out, and if they're expecting it, you can get parried. It will happen from time to time, but most people aren't able to do that just yet. So, take advantage of it now while you can. Aside from that though, it has great running attacks. That is something that's not unique to this Halberd, it's unique to all Halberd class weapons, so you've got that benefit across the board. And aside from that, your R2s are actually very good at roll catching your opponents. So if they're rolling away from you or rolling sideways around you, if you do a one-handed or two-handed R2, you can unlock, and it does have a decent roll catching capability. So again, pretty good benefit. Now, as I said earlier on, there are some cons to the weapon, biggest being the whiff animation if you don't figure out a way to take advantage of it and use it to bait your opponents. But aside from that, the weapon is a tad slow, its attacks are pretty linear. If you do whiff, there is a decent recovery time. And the worst thing about the weapon, and this is something that they really, I see why they changed it, but I do kind of miss it. Dead angles. They're not a thing anymore, and with this weapon in the original version of the game, dead angles helped out a lot, covering the blind spots. So it is what it is at the end of the day. Overall, it's still a phenomenal weapon. It still has great damage on those Leo ring counters, as it always has. It's got some good wide sweeping rolling attacks, it's got some decent R2s for roll catching, the phenomenal Halberd running attack, and you can't forget about those Leo ring counters. They're just too great to forget about. So, it is what it is. That said, that's all I've got. I hope you guys are excited that these are coming back. There are some things that did change with the remaster, such as dead angles, so there's some stuff we have to go over and, well, remaster, I suppose. But either way, thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you guys next time.